Have you ever wondered why you can hop online, order a totally customized, like one-of-a-kind pair of sneakers, and have them arrive at your doorstep in just a few days?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Right. But then basic, everyday items, like a roll of toilet paper, for instance, can suddenly just disappear from store shelves for weeks at a time. Kind of feels like a glitch in the matrix.
It really does. But the secret behind that isn't magic,
Yeah,
It's strategy.
exactly. And today we are taking a deep dive into the hidden architecture of how things actually get to you. We're going to unpack the strategy behind the supply chains of the world's most successful companies.
Because, if you've ever been frustrated by a delayed package or a sold-out item, the failure probably didn't happen on the delivery truck.
Where did it happen then?
It likely happened months ago in some boardroom when a company fundamentally misunderstood its own goals. We tend to think of supply chains as just trucks and warehouses, right? Like just the physical movement of cardboard boxes.
Yeah, point A to point B.
Exactly. But what you are really interacting with when you click buy is the physical manifestation of a company's entire business model. The trucks are just the final layer of thousands of calculated decisions.
So we're really talking about the why and how behind everything we touch. And to kick us off, we need to talk about alignment, right?
Yes, absolutely. A poorly designed supply chain will bankrupt a company, no matter how incredible their actual product is. You have to start by looking at the very top.
Like the overall corporate mission.
Exactly. How a company aligns its overall purpose with its physical operations. There's this cascading effect that has to happen. You have an organizational strategy, which, dictates the long-term vision.
Right, the big picture.
Right. And that flows down into a business strategy, which decides how you're actually going to compete in the market. And finally, that dictates your supply chain strategy, which is the physical execution of those ideas.
Let me stop you there for a second. Give me an example of what happens when those three things don't align.
Okay, sure. Imagine a company whose overarching organizational mission is environmental sustainability.
Okay, sounds good so far.
Right. But to keep their business strategy competitive on price, their supply chain quietly sources the absolute cheapest, most carbon-heavy materials from factories with terrible environmental records.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly. The moment the public finds out, the brand is destroyed. The physical supply chain betrayed the organizational strategy. If those three levels aren't moving in perfect lockstep, the company's basically just burning resources.
So, if I'm starting a massive retail brand, how do I even decide what my business strategy is going to be? How do I choose my lane before I start building warehouses?
Well, you have to commit to what business strategists call a generic business strategy. The first option is a low-cost strategy. Think of a massive dollar store chain.
Right, where everything is just dirt cheap.
Yeah. Their entire competitive advantage is offering the absolute lowest price possible to you, the consumer.
Which means their supply chain must be incredibly stingy, right?
Oh, every fraction of a penny counts. A low-cost supply chain uses incredibly standardized products. They buy in massive, slow-moving bulk.
So no overnight air shipping for them.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
And you won't see fancy customized packaging either. They even design their physical store shelves to fit the exact pallets the goods arrive on.
Wait, really? Just to save time?
Yeah, so workers don't have to spend time unpacking individual items. The whole supply chain is engineered for relentless bare-bones efficiency.
Okay, but what if I don't want to be the cheapest? What if I want to be a premium brand?
Then you choose a differentiation strategy. Here, you're competing on high quality, a massive diversity of products, or an unmatched customer experience.
Got it. So you're trying to be the most unique or the most helpful?
Right. Take a company like Zappos in their early days. Their differentiation was customer service. They would spend an hour on the phone with you and offer free, instant returns.
Which means their supply chain had to be incredibly responsive to handle all that unpredictable two-way shipping, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't do that with a slow, low-cost supply chain.
I was actually reading in the sources about a specific tactic companies use for differentiation. It's called modular design with postponement. How does that actually work in the real world?
Oh, postponement is a brilliant mechanism. Let's say you manufacture high-end electronics for a global market.
Right.
Instead of building one specific version of your device for the US with an American plug and another for the UK with a British plug.
Which sounds like a nightmare to manage.
It is. So instead, you build a totally generic device, you ship those generic devices all over the world, and you basically postpone the final customization until the very last minute in the local supply chain.
Ah, I see.
So when an order comes in from London, a worker at a local distribution center pops a UK plug and a UK manual into the box and ships it.
Oh, that makes total sense. You get to offer highly customized, differentiated products to every market without having to, hold a massive, risky inventory of a dozen different finished versions.
Exactly. Now, the third generic strategy is a focus or niche strategy. You target a very specific, narrow market, either through lightning-fast responsiveness or relentless innovation.
Like Apple, maybe.
Perfect example. Apple uses a niche strategy focused on innovation and time to market. When they drop a new piece of tech, their supply chain is built to flood the globe with millions of units in a single weekend.
Right, capturing the early adopter market before competitors can even react. Looking at these choices, low cost, differentiation, niche, it feels a lot like choosing a character class in a role-playing game.
That's actually a great way to look at it.
Yeah, you have to commit to your core stats. You can't play as a heavily armored tank who absorbs all the damage while simultaneously trying to be a light and fast rogue sneaking around in the shadows.
Exactly, you have to specialize.
But let me throw a hypothetical at you. The sources mention best cost as a hybrid strategy. So what if a company decides they want to try a hybrid approach? They want to offer incredible quality but also be the cheapest on the market.
Honestly, trying to be everything to everyone is a dangerous trap. It leads to something called sub-optimization.
Sub-optimization.
Yeah. If you instruct your supply chain to prioritize lightning-fast delivery for customer satisfaction, but you also cut their budget to hit low-cost targets, the system just breaks down. The supply chain becomes confused.
So what does that look like in practice?
They start putting cheap products on expensive airplanes or holding premium goods on slow cargo ships. You dilute your competitive advantage and end up being mediocre at everything. You really have to have a primary focus.
That makes the RPG analogy even stronger. The character who spreads their skill points completely evenly across every category just becomes useless in a major boss fight.
Completely useless. And just to clarify, a common point of confusion on cost and true low-cost strategy is a broad competitive approach. It's different from a mechanical process called target costing.
Right. Target costing is more about product design, isn't it?
Exactly. You start with the absolute maximum price the consumer is willing to pay. Then you subtract your required profit margin. Whatever tiny amount of money is left over is your maximum allowable cost to manufacture and ship the product.
Wow, so you force your engineers and supply chain managers to design the physical product backward to fit inside that tiny financial box.
Precisely. It's a very specific tactic.
Okay, so we've aligned our strategy, we know our character class. How does a company actually build the physical engine to make this happen? How do we map out the architecture?
This is where we shift from abstract theory to the concrete building blocks of a business model. We use Michael Porter's 5 fundamental elements.
And just to be clear for the listener, these are different from Porter's famous 5 forces, right?
Yes, very different. These are the 5 structural pillars of business fitness. They are customer service, sales channels, value system, operating model, and asset footprint.
Okay, let's walk through those mechanisms. Customer service and sales channels seem fairly straightforward. How much hand-holding do you give the customer and where do they buy it?
Right, website versus a physical retailer.
Yeah. But the operating model feels like the real engine room to me.
It really is. The operating model dictates how you actually manufacture the goods. The 2 main spectrums are make to stock versus make to order. Let's look at make to stock first.
Okay.
A company forecasts that they will sell 1 million basic t-shirts next year. So they run their factories 247 to produce those shirts in massive batches. This drives the per unit production cost down incredibly low.
Because they have massive economies of scale.
Exactly. But the trade-off is that they now have 1 million t-shirts sitting in a warehouse. Their inventory holding costs are massive.
Right. They're paying for warehouse space, insurance, and just taking on the risk that consumer taste might suddenly change.
Exactly. Make to order is the inverse. You wait until the customer actually hands you their credit card and then you build the product.
So your inventory holding costs drop to virtually zero because the product immediately ships to the buyer.
Right. But your production costs skyrocket. You can't run massive, efficient factory batches if you are building customized one-off orders. You have to choose the operating model that matches your generic strategy.
Makes sense. And what about the asset footprint? What is that exactly?
That is deciding where on the globe you place your physical assets?
Yeah.
Do you build one massive global mega factory to maximize your economies of scale, even if it means shipping products across oceans?
Or do you build a regional footprint, right? Like smaller factories in every major country you serve?
Exactly. A regional footprint raises your factory costs, but it drastically shrinks your transportation costs and helps you avoid international trade tariffs.
You know, it really is like building a house. Porter's 5 elements are sort of like the architectural floor plan.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, but once you have the floor plan, you have to decide who is actually going to swing the hammers, which brings up the concept of core competencies.
Right.
To keep the house analogy going, defining your core competencies is basically deciding which rooms you're going to DIY yourself and which rooms you're going to hire a specialized contractor to build for you.
That's a perfect way to explain it.
Yeah.
Many modern companies eventually realize that their true core competency, the thing they do better than anyone else in the world, is not actually swinging the hammer.
It's the brain work.
Exactly. It's the design, the marketing, and the orchestration of the supply chain.
So they keep the brain work in-house and they outsource the physical execution tasks to someone else.
Right. If a company's unique value is in designing beautiful smartphones, it makes absolutely no sense for them to tie up billions of dollars buying a fleet of delivery trucks.
Yeah, why would they?
A third-party logistics company can run those trucks cheaper, faster, and with fewer routing errors. By outsourcing the execution, the tech company frees up its capital to focus on what it does best.
There is a mechanism used to figure this out called value stream mapping. How does a company use that to decide what to keep and what to cut?
Value stream mapping is literally mapping out every single step a physical product takes, from raw dirt all the way to your hands. At every step, you ask a ruthless question. Does the customer care about this, and are they willing to pay for it?
So if an item sits in a temporary storage facility for 3 weeks before moving to a final warehouse,
The customer gets absolutely no value from that delay. It's what we call non-value added waste. The ultimate goal is adding utility for the customer while eliminating any step they wouldn't happily pay for.
okay, but what if a company insists on DIYing an execution task, like running their own inefficient warehouses just out of, a desire for control? What are they actually doing to themselves?
They are actively destroying financial value for their stakeholders. Investors want a high return on capital. If you lock up millions of dollars in a half-empty warehouse that a third party could run more efficiently, you're failing your investors.
Because that capital is just trapped.
Right. And because your inefficient warehouse probably processes orders slower,
Yeah.
you're also failing your customers. You have to focus exclusively on where you uniquely add value.
Okay, so we have our strategy, we have our architectural floor plan with Porter's 5 elements, and we've mapped out our value stream. The physical infrastructure is built.
Right.
But a supply chain isn't a static monument, right? It's a living, breathing network. How does a company monitor the health of this massive system in real time?
They rely on the primary dashboard of the supply chain, which is governed by the 3 Vs: increased visibility, increased velocity, and reduced variability.
Let's start with visibility. What does that look like?
Visibility is the ability to view information anywhere in the chain, instantly. Think about point-of-sale scanners at a retail checkout.
Okay.
When you buy a blender in a store in Chicago, that scanner doesn't just ring up your total. It instantly fires that data backward through the supply chain.
So everyone sees it at once.
Exactly. The regional distribution center sees that a blender was sold. The factory in Taiwan sees it. The supplier, who makes the glass pitchers for the blender, sees it. Perfect visibility means everyone knows exactly what's happening in real time.
No waiting for end-of-month sales reports.
Precisely. And that data flow triggers the second V, which is velocity.
Okay, let me ask a clarifying question here, because when we talk about velocity, I think most people just picture a delivery van speeding through a neighborhood. Is velocity really just about fast physical delivery?
It's a common misconception. Physical speed is part of it, but velocity in a supply chain is actually a broader concept. It is the speed of physical materials, the speed of information, and most importantly, the speed of cash.
Wait, break down the speed of cash for me. How does cash have velocity?
Imagine you build a product and deliver it to a major retailer. It took you 30 days to manufacture it, and the retailer demands 90 days to pay their invoice.
Okay.
From the moment you bought the raw materials to the moment cash actually hits your bank account, 120 days have passed. Your cash velocity is terrible.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you have millions of dollars just trapped in the system, unable to be reinvested.
Exactly. So increasing velocity means squeezing the idle time out of every single process. It means materials flow seamlessly, information flows instantly, and cash turns over rapidly.
Okay, so if you have perfect visibility seeing the data and incredible velocity moving the goods and cash, you're perfectly positioned to defeat the final V, variability.
Yes, variability is the natural, unpredictable fluctuation in supply and demand. And if a company isn't careful, small variability at the consumer level causes a devastating chain reaction called the bullwhip effect.
I've heard of that. Walk me through the mechanics of the bullwhip effect. How does it physically happen?
Let's say there's an unexpected heat wave, and a local hardware store suddenly sells 5% more air conditioners than usual.
Okay, a small bump.
Right. The store manager panics, wanting to ensure they don't run out, so they order 10% more from their regional distributor.
Ah, I see where this is going.
The distributor sees this 10% spike in orders. They want a buffer too, so they order 20% more from the manufacturer.
It's amplifying at every single step up the chain.
Exactly. By the time that signal reaches the factory, the manufacturer sees a massive surge and adds a third shift of workers to produce 40% more air conditioners.
Oh.
But the actual consumer demand only went up 5%.
The rest is just phantom demand caused by a lack of visibility.
Yes. And once the heat wave breaks, the entire supply chain is suddenly choking on warehouses full of unsold air conditioners.
So how does the dashboard fix this?
Well, if the factory had perfect visibility, if they could see the point-of-sale data instantly showing a mere 5% bump, and they had high velocity to rush a few extra units to the store, there's no panic.
The bullwhip effect is neutralized.
Exactly. When you control visibility and velocity, you master variability. You don't need to hoard massive amounts of safety stock inventory just in case. And I should quickly mention the sources also nod to 3 bonus Vs: vocalization, variety, and volume. But the main 3 are really the core focus.
Got it. Now, mastering those 3 Vs sounds incredible if you are a company that sells exactly one simple product. But let's introduce some messy reality here.
It does get messy.
Most mega corporations sell a chaotic mix of things. A giant superstore sells everything from fresh bananas to flat-screen TVs to basic socks. How do you optimize a system that complicated?
You cannot apply a single monolithic supply chain to a diverse product portfolio. If you do, you fail. A supply chain theorist named Marshall L. Fisher developed a brilliant framework for this. He divides the physical world into 2 categories: functional products and innovative products.
Functional products being the boring, everyday staples.
Right.
Toothpaste, white t-shirts, canned soup.
Exactly. The demand for functional products is incredibly stable. People always need toothpaste, regardless of the economy. And because they're so common, the profit margins on a tube of toothpaste are microscopic.
Right.
Therefore, your supply chain for functional products must prioritize raw efficiency. You run huge batches, you load them onto massive, slow-moving ocean freighters, you sacrifice speed entirely to get the absolute lowest transportation cost.
But innovative products operate in a different reality entirely. We're talking about high fashion apparel or like the latest flagship smartphone. The profit margins are enormous, but the demand is wildly unpredictable.
Yes. The life cycle of the product might only be 6 months before it's obsolete.
Right. So if you try to ship an innovative product on a slow ocean freighter to save money,
You will miss the market window entirely. The product will arrive just as the trend dies. For innovative products, you must design a highly responsive supply chain with excess buffer capacity. You eagerly pay the premium for overnight air freight because the financial penalty of missing a high-margin sale is infinitely worse than the cost of jet fuel.
There is an MIT professor, Jonathan Burns, who takes this concept even further. He argues that a one-size-fits-all supply chain is a fundamental mistake. He says companies need multiple, totally dynamic supply chains operating simultaneously.
Zara is the ultimate physical proof of this theory. Most people view Zara purely as a fast fashion machine, but behind the scenes, they actually orchestrate 2 entirely separate supply chains.
Wait, 2 entirely different systems?
Exactly. So for their basic functional garments, standard jeans, plain t-shirts, they use manufacturing facilities out in Eastern Europe or Asia. The labor is cheaper, the transit is slower, but it perfectly matches the low-margin, predictable nature of those staples.
Okay, but what about their avant-garde, unpredictable fashion pieces?
For those, they use highly responsive, more expensive factories located right in Western Europe, mere hours from their retail stores. When a new trend hits, they can design, cut, sew, and stock an innovative piece in less than 3 weeks. They run a slow chain and a fast chain simultaneously.
So basically, if I'm a giant retailer, I shouldn't just shove high-end electronics and basic white t-shirts onto the exact same truck just to save a few bucks on gas.
That is the ultimate example of sub-optimization. Imagine trying to run a high-speed bullet train and a 2-mile-long lumbering freight train on the exact same set of tracks at the exact same time.
Oh, the slow train would completely clog the network.
Right. The bulky, low-margin staples destroy the responsiveness you desperately need for your high-margin innovations.
But practically speaking, how does a massive multi-billion-dollar company figure out exactly where to split the tracks? How do they know which supplier to use or where to build the warehouse? It sounds like an administrative nightmare that humans just can't process.
They don't process it manually. They rely on heavy mathematics. They use financial modeling and a field called operations research. In financial modeling, they use metrics like economic value added, or EVA.
Break down EVA for me. How is it different from normal profit?
A lot of supply chain managers just look at operating profit. But EVA measures the true economic profit by deducting the actual cost of the capital tied up in the system.
Ah, I see.
If your massive warehouse generates a profit, but the millions of dollars tied up in the building and the inventory cost you more in interest and lost opportunities, your EVA is actually negative. Financial modeling proves the real-world value of a decision.
And operations research, that's the other piece you mentioned.
Operations research is the hardcore algorithmic heavy lifting. It's network modeling. You feed a supercomputer thousands of variables: global fuel prices, labor rates in Vietnam versus Mexico, transit times, fluctuating currency exchange rates.
Just a massive amount of data.
Yeah. And the algorithms run millions of simulations to find the exact mathematical sweet spot. It tells you literally down to the coordinate where to place a distribution center to achieve the lowest cost for staples and the highest speed for innovations.
There's another massive variable the deep dive sources touched on that completely changes the math too. Tax strategy, like creating a tax-aligned supply chain, or TASC.
Oh, absolutely. Physical logistics and global tax strategy are completely intertwined.
Wait, so tax codes can change physical truck routes?
Definitely. An operations research model might show that moving a factory across a border into a neighboring country will slightly increase your trucking costs. However, if that new country offers a corporate tax rate that saves the company $50 million a year,
the algorithm dictates you make the move. The tax savings dwarf the freight penalty.
That's exactly.
Wow. We have really covered the entire architecture today. Let's synthesize this journey. We started by realizing that a supply chain isn't just about moving boxes, it's the execution of a deep organizational strategy.
Right, they have to be perfectly aligned.
We saw that you have to choose your character class, whether you're competing on low cost, differentiation, or a specific niche. And then we looked at the mechanisms of Porter's 5 elements.
Balancing make-to-stock efficiency against make-to-order agility.
Right, and stripping out waste using value stream mapping. And then we explored how to read the vital signs of the network on the dashboard.
Using visibility and cache velocity to neutralize the variability of the bullwhip effect.
And finally, we saw how the most advanced players in the world use intense mathematical modeling and operations research to run entirely separate bullet trains and freight trains, keeping their functional staples cheap and their innovative products lightning fast.
It really is the ultimate balancing act of the modern world.
So here is your takeaway. I want you to look around the room you are sitting in right now. Pick an object. Your laptop, a coffee mug, the shoes on your feet. Every single item you see required a staggering, highly calculated network of strategic decisions.
It's wild to think about.
Someone had to weigh global tax codes, forecast consumer variability, and choose between massive economies of scale or nimble regional manufacturing just so that object could reach your hands at exactly the right cost and speed.
You know, if I can leave you with one final thought to mull over. Throughout our discussion, we've treated the ultimate goal of a supply chain as a perfect pull system.
Right. A consumer pulls the trigger, and the supply chain perfectly and instantly reacts to fulfill that demand. Zero variability.
But look at where predictive algorithms and data harvesting are going. What happens when a company's artificial intelligence becomes so sophisticated that it can predict exactly what you are going to buy before you even realize you want it?
Wait.
Yeah. They use your browsing habits, local weather patterns, and demographic shifts to literally physically position a product in a micro warehouse 3 blocks from your house, fully anticipating your purchase.
So they stage the physical reality before the digital click even happens.
Exactly. At that point, does the ultimate pull system silently flip into a psychological push system? If the product is already sitting down the street waiting for you, is the supply chain fulfilling your desire? Or are there predictive models subtly dictating what you buy because they've made the friction of acquiring it absolutely zero?
Man, that is a staggering thing to think about. The difference between getting customized sneakers in 2 days and waiting weeks for a basic staple isn't just an operational glitch. It's a sign that these massive architectural networks already know what we value and how to deliver it, long before we even reach for our wallets. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.